client savings. We've done $2.5 billion for FY 2019 itself. Uh, so again, on the right hand side, if you look at the ENR ranking, and if, I don't know if you're aware of the engineering news record, it ranks engineering companies across the world for in various categories. So we are number one in the top 500 design firms in ENR, number one, the most admired company by Fortune magazine, and number one top consultant for environmental health and safety, a digital vision strategy by Modentix. And one thing you'll see that's Jacob's trademark is about safety, culture of caring. These are very important for the company, and these are very held up very high. So you must have realized over the last 3 days that every presenter started off something called a culture of caring movement. And that's not just about safety; it's about understanding your co-employees. Trying to sort of help them out if they have needs, and helping each other grow, basically. On the right hand side, again, you see a lot of other things over here. We're number one in healthcare, number one in government offices in these sectors, basically. Number two, retail, hotels, convention centers. Number three, general buildings. So you get the general idea. So we are there in the top, top contenders for in all of those areas. And what areas do we function in? We function across buildings, transportation, water, environmental, advanced facilities, cybersecurity. In the US, we do a lot of government work. Work as well. We've got clients as prestigious as NASA and Kellogg's, IBM. We've got lots of clients in that type of category. And a little bit on this in the focus areas over here. So yes, we talk about disciplines, but then there are certain focus areas we talk across all of the disciplines that we work in. So strategic consultancy is one. Whether it is so basically we provide efficient, long-lasting, sustainable designs solutions across a variety of disciplines. Again, safety in design is a big thing. Might be something that you've not heard before, but when we design things, we look at the safety aspect of it from the user perspective. Whether this is going to be a safe design, does it bring any risks along with it? That is looked into as well. So something for you to probably think over as well. Planning and development across various disciplines again, whether it's traffic planning, town planning, smart cities, all of that. We are into digital and integrated designs, and I think we talked about some of these earlier as well, digital solutions. So I'm not going to go into that. We are into big data as well, where, big data is anything that's more than 5 terabytes of data, where it's not possible for regular servers to handle this data. And it's more into that advertising type of areas where we help as well. We are into delivery partnership, and which means we are into various models with our clients and our contractors. It could be design build or design construct, as they say in some places, alliances, design joint ventures. We also work as client engineers, peer reviewers, different roles that we do. Operations and facilities management, so supply chain, maintenance, providing maintenance plans, asset management. So if you look at it, this spans across various disciplines, not restricted to a particular discipline as such. And the map itself gives you an idea of where we are located. We've got a pretty good spread across the globe, basically. And then I'll dive a little bit, closer to home, which is what Buildings and Infrastructure India provides. Just to give you an idea that we also have another business unit, which is called the Advanced Facilities, which is more into life sciences, electronics, and that type of this data centers as well. But the primary areas where we function, and we sort of have these 8 verticals that we work in. Aviation, where we do support airside infrastructure, and we have the land side infrastructure. So it is basically within the sort of the boundaries of an airport, and all infrastructure required outside the boundaries of a airport. Ports, marine, and we've got a wing that also does project management, construction management as well. Areas, we are into consulting, but we are a lot into uh, having our staff supporting construction projects in program management, field services, all of that. So that sort of sits under that area. Um, so again, in architecture and urban planning, we've got two main headings: architecture, and this could be across various disciplines. It could be station buildings, hospitals, transport structures, for that instance, and urban planning for again transport projects. The land development. We've got landscaping that we do as well. So a lot of areas, avenues, basically. MEP, I don't know if, not sure if you are aware of the term MEP, but it's primarily mechanical, electrical, plumbing, but it's not restricted to that. We've got, we've got firefighting in there, BMS, SCADA. I don't know if you've got, it's more of automation of building and fire protection. And the major units over there that we have is breakdown is electrical, which is two parts: the infrastructure side of it and the buildings side of it. We've got mechanical infrastructure and mechanical buildings as well. So it's split between the two types of businesses that they support. And then we've got instrumentation and control. We've got a group which is called structures, and this is a consolidated unit that has bridges, that manages buildings, bridges and viaducts, water structures. And we also have a geotechnical team within that, which is fast growing, actually. We also have, there are certain niche areas, I'd like to talk about that here, is certain niche areas where, we've got one or two people here. For example, we've got somebody who can do durability, a very niche area. We've got people who do pavements. For example, we do pavement management. So a lot of these niche areas that you can explore. It's a very big world. It's a very versatile world here, and it's something. It's a very good environment for you to thrive, move across laterally, vertically, and grow. Highways and rail. We've got. So it's basically road design that we do, and it's not just the alignment designs. We also do sort of road furniture designs, safety aspects as well. Drainage. So basically, this drainage is slightly different from. So this is more for the pavements and cross sort of drainage for linear projects. Basically, transport planning again. It's for both road infrastructure. We also have for airports as well. So we do for regular road projects as well as for airports. And we've got a very fast growing rail team. So, again, a lot of split within that itself. We've got signaling, we've got, CSR, we've got track and alignment, we've got regular civil engineering works, drainage, so lots of areas there as well. Water engineering, primarily water is broken into water engineering, hydrological modeling, environmental, and GIS. So, when it comes to utilities design as well, that's part of this. Project controls. This is a unit that supports across business units, across projects and business units, I would say, rather. So, data analysis as to how the performance of projects are, how the company is performing, and various. There are also APMs like assistant project management roles that come out of this as well, where people help project managers with the data, project data, basically. So the picture that I give you here is, it's still sort of quite touching the surface. If you really dive into it, there's a lot more. This slide itself, somebody could talk for a couple hours here. So I think what we want to convey here is lot of opportunity over here, and it is not just in India, but across the borders as well. You can try things laterally. I've been in Jacobs for almost 10 years now myself, and I've seen the opportunities. So just going back, I started off as a design engineer, leading some of the projects. I got an opportunity to work in sales, which was a great opportunity. Moved back into operations, where I'm managing the global integrated delivery, like I said. So it's all about enterprise. How much enterprise do you bring with yourself? The company has tremendous potential. For you, it's just about tapping that. So that said, I think we can dive into our topic for the day, and it's a pretty curious one for you, and I'll probably not explain it on the opening slide itself. Decoding cultural awareness, and I'll just quickly go to the agenda. So we're going to go through a culture of caring movement, like we did, and we're going to talk around gender pronouns. Uh, we are going to try and understand what working globally means, and understanding why it is important. And then we'll go to the key takeaways. So why does gender pronouns matter? And first, I think we need to understand what we mean by gender pronouns. So a lot of times it is assumed, when we write an email or having a conversation on a phone where you're not able to see the person on the other side of it. Sometimes even if you're able to see the person on the other side of it, it is there's a lot of times where the genders are not addressed with the correct, whether it's a he or a she, her or he or a him, she or a her. So it is very important for us to be sensitive to this topic. It's got a very big psychological impact that it brings along with it. Uh, so what we need to do is we need to give people the freedom to select or how they are referred to, is an important part of inclusion. So we have talked about inclusion, and I think Samida is going to talk more about that as well going forward. But having somebody misgendered is a real problem. It's not just for people who are of non-binary, trans, or intersex people, and I'll just explain what it means. There are people who are born with a certain gender, but they don't associate with themselves, or some of the are born with a certain gender, and they associate with the other gender that they're not born with, or people who do not have the anatomy of either a male or a female, and that's quite common. And there was a point where we used to sort of sideline these people, but Jacob's culture in general is very particular that we have to be inclusive. Every person, no matter what gender or what their physiological state, whether they are special, whatever it is, everyone brings something with them, some skill, uh, uh, you know something special with them. So we are quite open to all of that, and then it's very important that we make sure we use the right terms. What it does is it helps everyone feel included, and respected. And when you feel included, when you feel respected, you come out as the full person you are, right? When you have something that you holds you back, you'll never be yourself. You'll never show your full potential. It's important to show the other people that you're an ally. And biggest thing, never assume things. That somebody is a he or she. It could be because of how they sound, because of how they dress, because how they look, how they walk. It could be anything. So you have to put yourself in somebody else's shoe and see how it would feel to be cornered or sidelined. Encourage people to think about their own gender as well. And so the way to sort of get to sort of mitigate that issue is to considering using uh, the gender, your pronouns, basically. So a small example shown over here, which says it gives your name, what your job title is, your contact details, and you put a pronoun at the end, whether you're a he or a him, she or a her, and it'll be always good for people to address you properly. So uh, you are covered, and then it gives others the ability to do that same as well. Now that we've gone through this topic, we're going to talk a little bit more around what working globally means. What is a global business? Yes, we a lot of us start off with smaller companies which are locally based. Have a few employees, but eventually you're going to rise up to bigger companies, bigger corporations, where you're going to be working across boundaries, not just state boundaries, but across international boundaries as well. And why do businesses go global? What does So working globally means working across boundaries, right? Whether we deliver a project in India with resources sitting in the US, or UK, the Middle East, Australia, doesn't matter where, or vice versa. And a lot of our business that Jacobs does, and you've probably seen one of the slides which says 75% of the work that Jacobs does in India is global integrated delivery, which means we support businesses from an engineering perspective. So the projects are for example, Australia, New Zealand, the Middle East, US, UK, and these are resourced by engineers, drafters, modelers from India. Or India is just an example for us. There are other teams as well that do. Philippines does it. Poland does it. There are many other countries that do that as well. What are the benefits? I think you'll probably get a better feel of this when Samita talks a little bit more about the inclusion part of it, and the biases and all of those things. The biggest benefit that it brings is we bring different perspectives from different parts of the world. How we grow, how we are brought up, how we how what our culture is. All of that defines our ideas, right? And when you have people from different parts of the country, different parts of the world, people are going to come out with the best and the brightest ideas. So the whole purpose of this is to have access to a resource pool that is the best and the brightest, right? If you restrict yourself to, say, for example, India, you are uh, you're only looking within a certain region. But when you go outside, people might have a different perspective of looking at things, of towards design, towards execution, and this is what the benefit of this whole global delivery is. How do we work remotely and globally? We've got the technology to do it. We've got servers where people share. We've got technology where, for example, what we're doing at the moment here, sitting individually at our homes and learning here, we do a similar thing on our jobs as well. So where we people connect, whether it is through video calls, for that matter, even we have reached to a point where people in the lead offices go to a site, and you could assist them while you are sitting at your home, at your home, through your screen. So it's that well. So technology has enabled us basically. And what things enable us to work globally? Now this is more of a soft topic. We've talked about people, we've talked about technology, we've talked about resources, all of that. Now, when we have people across various boundaries, what do we need? We need to be able to work together as a team. Yes, absolutely. We bring brilliant ideas, from across the globe, but we need to gel together as a team to be able to deliver something, that is world class. You can't have a team of the so-called misfits, right? You need to bring them to a common ground so that we can agree, yes, this is how we're going to deliver it. we are not going to cease to be what we are. We will be, but then we are going to aim towards a common goal. Basically. I'm going to just run through a quick video for you over here. It gives a very good perspective. Please don't. So this is a video that was done for HSBC. It doesn't mean anything. It's just something that we are trying to relay. The message is more important, I would say. So enjoy this for the next few minutes.
Sorry.
In Italy, different flowers have different meanings. Chrysanthemums, for example, are associated with funerals and sadness. At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge. HSBC, the world's.
Sprzedajemy coraz więcej pralek w Indiach. Dowiedz się dlaczego.
Indiach?
If you're going to do business internationally, you should be with a bank that knows about international business. HSBC Commercial Banking spans 64 countries and territories around the globe.
Look at this. Your machines make 10 times more than I used to. Have it?
Your business success is out there. Is your bank?
In some Asian cities, it's considered acceptable for a commuter to fall asleep on the shoulder of a stranger. In New York, it's quite a different story. Of course, it could always adapt. We're the global bank that never underestimates the importance of local knowledge. HSBC, the world's local bank.
The English believe it's a slur on your host's food if you don't clear your plate. Whereas the Chinese feel you're questioning their generosity if you do. At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge. Which is why we have local banks staffed by local people in over 80 countries across the globe. HSBC, the world's local bank.
In America, if you hit a hole-in-one, you're expected to buy everyone a drink. However, in Japan, it's traditional to buy your playing partners expensive gifts.
Same hole.
At HSBC, we never underestimate the importance of local knowledge. HSBC, the world's local bank.
So interesting, isn't it? What it was, and might be every time I watch this video, it puts a smile on my face. Some of them are plain funny, but then there are others that do make a significant difference to the business. For example, the one that you saw where the businessman was using washing machines to make lassi, right? For somebody, a Westerner, probably had never thought when they had started manufacturing washing machines that somebody could put it to use to with a whole different meaning to it. So it's though there's a lighter side to it, and it's just to make this presentation a bit more fun for everybody. I think it it has more tangible effects, the cultural awareness, than what we think it does. And what I'll do is, I'm quite aware of the time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a few examples, might be, of what it means. So I think from a business perspective, that is basically. So when you're a global business, there's a lot of opportunity for you to travel across borders. So people in our Indian offices have had opportunities to travel to the US, to the Middle East, to UK, and Australia, New Zealand, Asia, and what it does is it throws a whole different perspective. Very important for us here to understand, know what the culture is. Again, it does not mean that you have to adopt somebody else's culture, and it is very important to be proud of your own. But it is about respecting somebody else's culture. It every culture has developed over years, thousands of years. So there is sort of a perspective to it. So we should not sort of belittle anybody or need to treat equally. And that's basically what it's going to do, is it's going to unite us as one team, basically. 8 to 5 working. So if you look at a lot of the Western countries, they're very particular about their work timing. So when people say you need to come in at 8 in the morning, you come in 8 in the morning. It won't be 8:05, 8:10, 8:15. They're very particular about it, and people have a very good sense of work-life balance. I wouldn't say, again, this is not to generalize with everybody. You will find anomalies everywhere, and probably 50% of the population does not do it. But if you look at a large part of it, people would pick up their bags and walk out of the door at 5 p.m. Now, obviously, if there is something important that needs to be delivered that weekend or that day, yes, people will stay back. But on a general scenario, people find a very good work-life balance, and that is something that we need to respect. So, for example, there are people, from our offices go over there, and they realize, sometimes we tend to sit beyond 5. People are sitting there till 6, 7, and everybody, the entire office is empty. But that's what the culture is. So the other part to that is, we tend to, and this is again not common to, this is not something that we talk about, Jacobs, just an Indian scenario, I would say, is where people tend to talk to each other, their colleagues, socialize a little bit within the work hours. Socializing for a lot of Westerners is outside the work hours. So 5 o'clock is knock-off time. They all, whoever's or work friends get together, go out and then spend some time together before they go back home. Friday evenings is a very common thing, and I think most of you are, young generation, so you're quite aware of that. Friday nights is a big phenomenon now. A lot of times you'll see that you'll have people either visiting your offices, and these are cases that have happened. There was one of our overseas employees who traveled to one of our Eastern offices, Eastern Oriental offices, I would say, and there was a bunch of people who came, and there was a woman there, and when people shook hands with everybody except the woman, right? Now, for the woman, it was a little bit sort of, she was taken aback a little bit as to why the differentiation. I think this is where the cultural awareness was very important. That men in that country, if it's a woman, they would usually not shake hands with a woman. It's not that they would disrespect her; it is just the tradition of that particular place. So it's very important for us to know that. Again, when we work with people in a lot of Western countries, or even some other countries, I would say in general, uh, the trust comes from uh, basically on what you deliver, how you perform, right? Even we've seen people who have traveled from India, for instance, and I'm giving example from India because it's more sort of relevant. And they have started off as doctors, for example, and just because of their diligence, the commitment that they've shown, the hard work, and the enterprise they have shown, people have moved to even top positions, and that is a fact. We see there's lots of cases, particularly in Jacobs. Uh, Again, one of the very interesting conversation was when one of the director of operations of one of the groups in Australia wanted to have a chat with some of our team, that sits in India. A lot of people were quite sort of frightened to say the best is how do I speak with somebody to that of that level. Uh, so here it is important to know that you can open up to people. We've been in meetings where the entire team gets together, right from the senior manager or the team lead, basically, to somebody who's just executive assistant, and everybody's ideas are appreciated, and they're respected, basically. So everybody gets time to talk, everybody's listened to, and they won't shirk off an idea just because it is somebody who's less important in that. There is no concept of less important. So I think these are some of the things. There are lots of examples that I could give, but I think just in the interest of time, and we've still got a few things to cover. So I'll just summarize this into how cultural awareness, sort of pans out into something that is tangible for you. It's still a very soft topic, but so we've got cultural awareness. This is where your awareness starts. You try to learn about other cultures, which helps you address your biases. Once you understand cultures, and you need to have an open mind. Samita is going to talk more about that in detail. You need to have an open mind. You need to take off your biases. You need to think openly. It helps you think openly, basically. And once you start thinking openly, and once you start accepting other people for what they are, it starts creating mutual trust. It is not just about you doing it, but the other person doing it towards you as well. So it starts creating a trust. And that trust eventually starts building up an inclusive team. An inclusive team is where it doesn't matter what ethnicity you come from, which place you come from, whether you're senior, junior, whatever it is, you work as a team together. Everybody is respected equally. And that's what an inclusive team is about. And when you have an inclusive team, and that's what we talked about the global business as well, is that it brings diversity of thought, right? Different types of people, different ways of thinking, different experiences that they bring along with them. It brings diversity of thought, which eventually leads, when you have diversity of thoughts, you can think of a project or a task from different angles, right? You've covered your risks, right? You've covered economy. So that's the reason why it's called better, economical, sustainable. And then this is a very big thing in Jacobs as well, sustainability. We think a lot about sustainability. And one other thing is also safety in design that I talked about earlier. So we have better, economical, and sustainable design solutions. Once you have sustainable design solutions, you have a happy client. It means you performed well. And a happy client eventually leads to financial growth of the company. And when the company grows, the employee grows along with it, right? So if you look at this journey, basically it starts off something which is something quite abstract, right? It looks quite abstract, but and non-tangible. But when it comes to the end product of it, and if we keep doing it continuously, we eventually end up with something that is very tangible, something that brings prosperity to the individual as well. So I hope this has been able to sort of give you sort of an insight about why we talk about cultural awareness and why this topic was part of this 3-day presentation. This is something that you will encounter, and this is something you will get to some point. So it's very important that you start thinking on that in that perspective. So with that.
Thanks, Vipul.
Yeah, so Samida, you can take over from here.
Sure. So
and
now,
you can let me know when you. Yep.
Yeah, I'll just ask you to help me with the slides because you
Absolutely
are hosting it. Thank you so much. So you all have heard from Vipul about our business, about the spread, and how culture is basically connected. I mean, being a multinational organization, it's really important for us to have that cultural awareness within the organization. But I'll say not only for organization, but even for individuals, because tomorrow, if you want to go ahead and work, it's going to be a different, right? I mean, so far you have been into the environments which are very safe, closer to your home, something which you are aware of. But tomorrow, when you make those choices of entering into a corporate world, it's very crucial to understand these cultures and how you could adapt and connect better. So the stories which you heard from Vipul and overall overview of working globally and how it impacts individuals as well as organizations. Now let's explore what is culture and what it impacts and how it creates that impact on us. So before we go there, I just want to talk about a bit more about our core value, we live inclusion, and that's really of core importance to us. And hence there is a lot of emphasis we as Jacobs give to live inclusively, and one of which is living cultural inclusion, right? That's the reason it's very important and of utmost crucial for all of us to function. People, can we go to the next slide, please? Sure, thank you. So before we begin, let's keep in mind when we're talking about culture, there is nothing right or wrong, right? It's just different because we all have different perspective, different thinking process. So just because I'm right from my thinking or my thoughts, which doesn't make somebody else wrong. So we need to keep that in mind whenever we are having any discussion about culture or inclusion. Next thing is also important to have a self-awareness. It's a beginning, I'll say, for any journey which we want to start. So how I behave, what makes me happy, what doesn't, and what are my views, thoughts, and where they come from essentially, right? That's very important to understand why we behave in a certain way. We have certain personal biases where we come from, and it's actually coming from nothing but our preferences and larger unconscious behaviors which we have. And we're going to dig deeper into it, that how these biases are formed. So biases are formed largely based on our attitudes, beliefs, our backgrounds, our culture, where we come from, our surroundings, our values, which we have been taught right from our childhood, and that shapes us or our thinking in a certain way. Now, is having a bias bad? I'll not say yes to that, just because every bias has a root, right? I mean, just because you have come from a certain location or a certain background, you may have certain thinking process. What is important is to be aware of it and take actions accordingly, right? When you are aware that, yes, I have this bias, your actions should change if it's impacting people around you, or if you want to be more inclusive, you need to make that adaptation in your behavior. And if you are thinking not just global, but even diversifying, your portfolio, or you want to just go in terms of working to some other location, it's very important to be receptive and be open to learn and adapt to those different cultures, right? So the flexibility and changing your perspective is a key if you really want to explore and go for like global, or even I'll say local success. Because within India also you will see so much of diversity. And that takes me back to the concept of fixed mindset versus growth mindset. So if you really want to open, learn, you will have that growth mindset. And however, if you don't want to be kind of limited to your cocoon, it will not give you more opportunities of growth. So hence it's very important to be receptive to different ideas, opportunities, and look at it from a perspective of development. We're not saying you have to change it all the time, but at least give it a thought and look at it from a different perspective. Can we move to the next slide, please? Thanks, Vipul. So here I like to bring you to a concept called iceberg model. So this is a culture iceberg model which has been designed by Edward T. Hall. He suggested that culture was similar to an iceberg, right? And the culture has two components, and only 10% of culture is visible. So as you can see, this iceberg, it's just a 10% of it is on the top. However, the rest of the 90%, which is kind of like hidden, which we can't see, which is below that water level. And that's what is something which is actually making, what you're seeing, the actions, what you're seeing are responsible for what is underneath. So things which are easily observable or behaviors which we can see are something which is on the top of that iceberg, and things we difficult to observe are underneath that. So something like, just to give you a simple example here, is we always see somebody's behaving in a certain way, or certain practices which we see people doing. However, we don't see, what could be the perceptions behind that, what could be the attitudes, what are the beliefs, what values people may be having, and why they're doing this. So we see someone celebrating festivals. We all, like majority of Indians celebrate Diwali in India. And why people do it is because there is a belief or a custom to attach to that particular festival. And of course, there are different festivals. And everybody, based on their beliefs and based on their values, they celebrate those. So that's what we see on top. It's just the actions or the behaviors or the practices. But what goes underneath that is a lot of values, customs, beliefs, which people might be having. And that's very similar to what, when we look at different cultures, we see what people do. And you heard a lot of examples when people spoke about, people go on a Friday, or that's for like maybe, they want to go out and celebrate, or they just want to work in certain hours, or maybe sometimes they would like to extend it. So each of this behavior has some background to it. So instead of just judging somebody based on what you're seeing, it's always good to, dig deeper and understand what could be the reason behind it, right? And we're going to see a beautiful video on this note on our next slide. Can you just move there with me? And before Vipul plays that video, I'm just going to give you a quick background of what this video is going to talk about. We just spoke about cultures and how we cannot label people and stereotype them in certain boxes. So when we label people and put them into different boxes, we don't see people for who they truly are, right? We just look at them from a specific lens. So this video proves that we have a lot more in common than what we think. And we should keep that in mind when we encounter anyone who might seem different than what we are. So keep that open lens in order to look at people differently. Let's watch this video before we continue further.
It's so easy to place people in boxes, drawing lines, creating sides. There's us, and there's them. Those we feel comfortable around, and those we don't. There are those of us with many chapters, and those just starting their own stories. There's the well-to-do, and those doing what they can. There are those we share something with, and those we don't seem to share anything with.
Welcome, and thank you for coming today, guys. Today I'm going to be conducting an experiment where I'll ask you a series of questions. Now, these questions will be very personal questions, and for us to get a true result, I need you to be completely honest with how you respond. The first question I have is, who in here was the class clown? Who is never on time?
And then there's us. We who have tattoos. We who feel lonely. We who have been bullied. We who have bullied others. We who are madly in love. We who have overcome great adversity. And there's the lucky ones, whose team won the championship this year. We who beat cancer. And then there's all of us who are created in the image of God. And as one body, we stand together, united as one under His grace.
Thanks, Vipul. So this video is something really, I mean, whenever I see it every time, it just reminds me of a thought that, we keep looking at what's different in, people around us, but we should actually look at what are some of the similarities and how we connect with each other. And that really bring us together instead of looking at or labeling somebody and putting them into the boxes, right? So can we move to the next slide, please? Thanks. So you heard me talking about bias earlier. So having bias is a very natural occurrence. Anyone who has a brain has a bias. So anyone going through this crisis of is bias good or bad? My answer to them is bias is something depends on how you, based on that bias, how you take actions. That could be, those actions could be good or bad, not that bias in itself, right? Biases help us to use our previous knowledge to guide us as we make our new decisions, right? And why we don't have this cognitive ability to make every decision fresh, because our brain is a bit lazy and also loves to have and follow the frameworks. So it keeps putting things into different boxes as we process, and then call the similar looking things into this specific compartments. It starts storing things accordingly. So however, in this process, what's happening is we are developing biases. Where, we look at something similar, then we put that into that compartment of our brain, right? And that's how we say that, okay, somebody from this region is like this, or everybody in this location behaves like this, right? So this is how the biases are formed, or stereotypes are formed, and in terms of what we see, we put them into different buckets. So one thing to focus here is to be aware about your own biases and work on overcoming them. And if you feel they are becoming the obstacles in your development or building any relationship, I think that should be something which you really need to pay attention towards. Because if those biases are coming in your in your actions, that could be creating a problem. Because having bias in itself is not bad, but what actions you take based on that could be like good or bad depending on the situation you're in. Can we move next, please? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly talk about what are the different cultural dimensions which we are talking and we consider at Jacobs. So these, what we just saw is about the culture and how the biases are formed. And at Jacobs, as you all seen and heard so far, we being a multicultural and multinational organization, so it's important for us to understand different cultures, how we use this culture dimensions. We really help our people to understand each other better. We have people working across the globe, and it's very important to understand each other's preferences and adapt to them accordingly. So we use this cultural framework, which is based on the book called Culture Map by Erin Myers. And I definitely recommend you to read that book if you really want to know more about it. So some of the dimensions here I'm going to talk about. So some certain cultures is like to have more freedom, more flexibility, that they're very independent kind of. However, there are certain cultures where there is an interdependency is very high. They want to prefer working in groups, collaborating with people or teams. That's their preference. There are certain cultures wherein it's very egalitarian, wherein the distance between the boss and the subordinate is very low. It's like it's a very flat structure. Everyone is treated very equally, and communication is not like based on the hierarchy. Anyone can talk to anyone. However, there are certain cultures which are very status based, where there is an ideal distance being maintained between a boss and a subordinate. The boss is maybe will follow a particular chain of command or a communication channel to talk to their team, and that's something which is part of that culture, where there are very tall hierarchies within the organization. They're multi-layered, very fixed, and communication has to flow in a certain way. So that's a very status kind of a focused culture. There are certain cultures where the risk taking is really appreciated and encouraged, and there are certain cultures where the certainty is appreciated, which means you have to look at everything and then make your decisions, right? And while we are saying about this for the specific culture, not essentially everybody in those cultures will be like that, right? The individuals, like for example, if we see India being mapped, let's say on the independent side of a culture map, and I'm going to talk about how the culture map looks like, which doesn't make all Indians to fall on that side of the map, right? It could be individual preferences could be different than the cultural preferences of that region, right? Just to talk very quickly about the task and the relationship focus. So wherein somebody in certain cultures, they build trust based on how, they have worked together, based on the activities they have conducted, or the work relationships are built and dropped easily based on particularly of that situation. And you do good work consistently, you're reliable, somebody enjoys working with you, so they trust you. However, in certain culture, trust is built through sharing meals, maybe informal catch-ups, work relationships built up slowly over the long term. So I have seen you in a deep level. I have a connection with you. That's how certain people will build that relationship-based culture. So that's the difference between a task-based and a relationship-based kind of. And as I mentioned, different countries or different regions will have different preferences, and each of those countries or the individuals in those countries, their preferences could also differ. So what we do is we use a tool called Globe Smart in Jacobs, and of course there are different tools. That's just our preference, and we're going to just see that on our next slide. So we try and help our teams whenever they're trying to work together in a new project. It's very important to understand each other's preferences. Can we move to next slide, please, Vipul? Yeah. So as you can see on this slide, it talks about how the culture map looks like. So you can see the countries mapped on the right-hand side, and left-hand side you can see all the individuals. So anybody who's starting maybe a new project, it's worth the investment in just investing some time in order to map this on this tool, just to understand how their preferences are and work accordingly. Now, how does this help is definitely you get to know, we spoke about a bit of a self-awareness initially. So this tool helps people to know how their preferences are and definitely adapt and connect with each other better instead of just generalizing things or stereotyping or putting people into the boxes based on, your interpretation of that culture. Can we move next, please? Now that you've heard, just all about our organization, the culture preferences, and the overall kind of the framework, let's talk about how, some key summary and how you could take some actions out of all this, right? So some learnings and some actions for you. So before that, I'm going to just do a quick summary about, you just heard us talking, and Vipul spoke about global delivery. That's our business model. We are a very B2B organization, and we are invested in a lot of good projects. We're spread across the globe. So a lot of multicultural aspect comes in, and that really enhances working with us because that gives us a global footprint, which means our employees are also working across the globe, not just multi-dimensional growth, but also multicultural growth is something which they get offered. They also have opportunity to have a significant work and cultural awareness, what's happening new. Innovation is a key thing which we use and run throughout the organization. We also put a lot of emphasis on unconscious bias or the awareness of that, just to help each other understand that the bias exists and how unconsciously we might have been just, structured so that our biases are there. Just being aware of that and adapt and change accordingly. You just saw the cultural parameters and how to define the cultural differences, the model which we spoke about. And working together in a cultural diverse environment is very important for individuals as well as for the organization. And today, as we speak, we are in the era wherein, these global boundaries are diminishing. Like we are one whole global village kind of, wherein we are so connected and we have come so together. So it's always good to learn more about cultures, not only international but also domestic, and just to understand how it is different and how you can adapt and connect better. So on that note, I would like to share some tips with you, some actions for you to take from all this presentation, which can help you learn and connect better. So the first thing which you can definitely do is increase your self-awareness, right? Understand what are some of the challenges, thought processes which you have, what are your strengths, what are your key areas of development, what you could do differently, what are the opportunities for you, what are some of the threats for you. So do a like kind of a good SWOT analysis, do some reflection, understand if you have any biases of your own. Sometimes we are ignorant to our own kind of, it's always like, the fault lies at the other side, right? So, but it's always good to do some self-reflection. And if you feel there are some good friend of yours, and maybe your colleagues or your or your family members who can give you some good advice on things, like looking at, okay, these are some of the things which you need to change. So have a word with them, understand, have that conversation, and just try to understand your biases. Be open to learn, because that's something you have to keep learning. You are right now into the college, but that doesn't mean after you pass your exams the learning is going to stop. Learning has to be a continuous phenomena. You have to keep continuously learning, upgrading yourself, and that's exactly going to give you more opportunities. Think of certain behaviors you want to start with, or some habits you want to start, and some of the habits or behaviors you need to stop, right? Because right now in college it's a limited world, but of course when you step out of it, you really need to look into the wider region, the wider world, where you are going to step in and understand how you could connect with it better. So hence there need to be certain changes you need to make in yourself, in your personality. Step out of your comfort zone, try to challenge your beliefs, your values, and also try and understand how you can enhance your overall profile, right? So try to step out of that. Accept and respect people and cultures, and understand why we are doing what we are doing, instead of just thinking or labeling somebody that this is wrong or this is right? So just try and understand and accept and respect people's choices overall, not just cultures, but respecting each other is also very important, because the more you practice that, it becomes a habit and it will help you in a long run. And seek opportunities to travel. Travel is the best thing that can happen to anyone, where you could learn a lot. I'm very much aware right now we can't travel much because of the restrictions of COVID. However, whenever all this gets over, try to really explore and look for all the possible opportunities, learn about different cultures, learn about different places. That really impacts your overall personal as well as professional development, right? And read that book by Erin Myers on cultural dimensions. That's something really is a good book which can help you understand the subject more, right? On this note, I'm just gonna stop the culture piece presentation. But in case if you are interested, you heard Vipul talking more about Jacobs, and you have heard in last 3 days professionals from our side came and spoke about Jacobs and what we do. If you feel that Jacobs is a place where you want to be, look for the opportunities. We are there on LinkedIn, or if you really want to look more for what are the job opportunities, we keep posting our job opportunities on our site as well. So look for those, and we look forward to have really great talent working for us. We are really growing, expanding. So we really need great minds to come and work with us. So on that note, I'd like to say thank you to all of you for attending this. And I hope you really got some good learning out of this session. Vipul, do you want to add anything?
No, I think, Samita, you've covered it pretty well. I think it's just about a lot of technical things that we've learned over the few things. I think it was a good insight over the last 3 days. I hope everybody has had a good insight into what Jacobs does, what opportunities are present here. And I just say, good luck. You need to go out in the market and grab that opportunity.
Sure. Thank you, and all the very best to all of you.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
So, thank you, Ms. Sabita Mandavkar and Mr. Vipul Desai. Session 6 speakers on the topic Global Integrated Delivery, Importance of Cultural Awareness. Let me give a brief about last session of today. So we learned how working on global level, yet focusing on local knowledge and know-how is essential, and also we understood different aspects involved in cultural differences. We understood the importance of inclusive team, the differences between fixed mindset and growth mindset was also explained. So I am very much thankful to the speakers for session 6. So let me give a brief of our national level webinar on emerging interdisciplinary trends and opportunities in transportation engineering. So we started on 16th. So our first session was about Jacobs Intelligent Transport System. It was by Mr. Chidanand BS, ITS Manager, Jacobs, and he was joined with co-speaker Anirban Pal, Transport Planning Manager, and also with Sritha Dilip, Talent Acquisition Partner. So in the session 1, we discussed about Jacobs and technicality on intelligent transport system. Introduction on Jacobs was there. A wide range of resources provided by Jacobs was also explained by Ms. Sritha Dilip. System involved in technical design such as emergency roadside, MS3, MS4, high-end and IR-fitted CCTV, MIDAS, HEDEX 3. These all were discussed by Mr. Chidanand and Anirban Pal. I am very much thankful for the session 1. It was very informative session. They also discussed on future technologies such as PC5 communications, benefit of CAV systems, etc. Session 2, it was scheduled on 16th in the afternoon session. It was on smart motorways, concepts and insights. It was given by Mr. Saurabh Talukdar, Senior Engineering Manager of Jacobs, and he was also joined by Mr. Tariq Khan, Engineer at Jacobs. So the session was on the topic Smart Motorways, Concepts and Insights. So the key points which were discussed were dependent on the safety aspects in smart motorways, comparison of risk for different carriageway configurations, places of relative safety, operations of smart motorway, key features of smart motorways such as CEC cabinet, CCTV, MS4 drivers, panels, etc., interrelation between smart motorway and structural rehabilitation, and key constraints such as environmental issues and mitigation. I would like to extend my thanks to Mr. Omkar Joshi, Senior Engineer Design, Jacobs, and co-speaker Radhika Apte, Senior Engineer Jacobs, for session 3 at Stormwater on the topic Stormwater Design, Global Concepts and Design Insights. The discussion was mainly based on software for micro drainage, input and result analysis, glimpses on US drainage, Australia, New Zealand region, Middle East region, and even on Indian drainage design, and overview on airport project. Session 4 was given by Miss Nivedita Chakravarti, engineer manager, and she was accompanied by her co-speaker, Mr. Saurabh Talukdar, senior engineer manager at Jacobs. I'm thankful to both of them for session 4 on the topic building information modeling. So the speakers briefly elaborated about how BEAM is gaining importance across the globe, also how business value is derived from BEAM. BEAM helps in having better information management. BEAM aims at ensuring information management in a team environment. So the term common data environment was explained in detail during the presentation. So let's move to the day 3, that is today. Today we had 2 sessions. First session in the morning, that is session number 5. It was on the topic digital delivery, concept advancement and benefits. I'm thankful to the speakers, Ms. Swati Karwade, project information manager at Jacobs, and her co-speaker, Ms. Renu Arora, digital engineering lead at Jacobs. So the speakers from Jacobs highlighted the rapid revolution in field of digital delivery and digital advancement made in the industry. Also the key constituents involved in the 4th revolution of advancement were discussed briefly. So our topic 6, that is session 6, it was the concluding session on the topic global integrated delivery, importance of cultural awareness, and I have already given the brief of that a few minutes ago. I am again thankful to the co-speakers for today's last concluding session, Ms. Samita Mangaonkar and Mr. Vipul Desai. Thank you. Over to Anaukar sir, HOD, Civil Engineering Department, Zeal College of Engineering and Research.
Good afternoon all. At the very concluding session of this webinar, I must thankful to all those participants. It was around more than 200 registrations were there, but on an average around 150 participants get benefit of all these entire webinar. So which is a big number, I can say. Special thanks to Mr. Nitin Kansal, Vice President and Executive Director of Operations, India, Jacobs. Mr. Bridges was Head of Highways and Rail and Head of Global Integrated Delivery, Jacobs. Mr. Mukesh Garwal, Associate Director, Highways, Drainage and Transport Planning, and Jacobs Management Team. We are thankful to Jacob Coordinator, Tariq Khan and Umkar Joshi to help while technical delivery of this entire webcast for last 3 days. A very excellent coordination were there by these 2 persons. It will be very formal if I thank Mr. Pranav Padde who connected me with this entire team, and Mr. Dilip Pednekar, who is Section Manager and Global Integrated Delivery Champion, Jacobs. He is the person without whom it was mere possible to execute this entire webinar with such an excellent planning and whatever help he had provided. So on behalf of Zeal Education Society, Zeal College of Engineering and Research, I admit my heartfelt thanks to entire team, expert team of Jacobs India. Thanks to authorities of Zeal Education Society, Dr. M. Katesar, Principal, Zeal College of Engineering and Research, Dr. P.P. Walwekar, Internal Quality Assurance Cell Coordinator, and my entire departmental faculty team, Professor Akash Ingre sir, Puneet sir, Ajit Wakchore sir, and Ajay Banchode sir. You all coordinated excellently, and I must appreciate your efforts and micro-planning you did to make this webinar successful. Thanks once again to all of you. Stay safe and have a nice time. Thank you, sir. Akash, sir.
With this, I'll give best wishes for you all, and let us note that feedback links are already sent to you, and the feedback link of last session will be sent within half an hour. It is mandatory for all to completely fill the feedback form, and we will monitor the attendance of all the sessions, and after that you will be granted the e-certificate within a week. So thanks for your constant cooperation, and hoping for further cooperation in next webinars we will arrange. Thank you.
Thank you.